Hi there, my name is Sean McGeever, and I'm going to do a really brief Talk Tuesday on Mark chapter 4. The reason why it is brief is because I think that most Young Life leaders, when they look at Mark chapter 4, are going to be drawn to the very last story in this chapter, which is where Jesus calms the storm. It's such a wonderful one, a powerful one of my favorites to talk about, and I've already covered it in the Talk Tuesday talk that I did for Matthew 8. So I'm going to end up linking in here my notes in the video there so you can see all my details there. So this one's going to be brief, but if for some reason you wanted to go in a different direction, I'm not going to write out a full Talk Tuesday kind of plan and all that, but I just wanted to share a couple things. If for some reason you wanted to do that, if you look at the rest of Mark chapter 4, what you'll see is that there's a collection of parables that Jesus uses. And it is pretty interesting in Mark because there's all this action, chapter 1, 2, 3, and then when you come to chapter 4, it slows down a little bit, and there are these parables, these teaching sections, and it's when you look at Mark chapter 3, Jesus has just called his disciples. He's called his disciples, appointing of the 12 apostles. There's confusion about who Jesus is, and then he talks about who his family is, and then he comes to these parables, and there's a really strong theme in the midst of these parables. This is the parable of the sower, with the different soils and all that, and Jesus goes on to talk about that for quite a while. But then there's another parable about a lamp being under a basket, and a parable about a seed growing, and a parable about a mustard seed, and then we come to the Jesus calms the storm story at the end of Mark 4. And so, with these parables, the whole chapter is full of parables. Jesus is getting at something, especially when you see them like kind of one after another. They've got to be tied together. Mark is trying to make a point about something that he knows that Jesus wants to communicate. And so as I look at these, if you just kind of look at what's going on here, one word that is going to stick out is going to be the word "here." In fact, the word "here" is repeated 11 times in these parables. And so things like this, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. That there's people that may indeed hear but not understand. When the word is sown, when they hear, Satan immediately comes and takes away the word that's sown in them. When they hear the word, they immediately receive it with joy. Those who hear the word, the good soil are the ones who hear the word and accept it. Nor is anything secret except to come what is light. If anyone has ears to hear, let them hear. And he said to them, pay attention to what you hear. And then over in the last one, it says, and with many such parables, he spoke to them, and they were able to hear it. Anyway, you get the point. There's this massive emphasis throughout these parables, this kind of thread that weaves through them about what is it that we hear, and how do we respond to that. So if I was going to go in a direction, I would actually probably weave together these parables and this theme that Jesus is building up, which is about what we hear and how we respond. And two things that I would use as illustrations in this would be the idea of a seed, because there's the parable of the sower and the seed when he throws it on all the different soil. So I would literally get some seeds, and I would get like a little pot of soil, and I would talk about that. And another thing that I might bring up would be when it talks about a lamp under a basket. I could see a really cool illustration, kind of with the idea of a lamp. As I was thought about it, I'd probably get a candle, but it wouldn't be lit. That's fun talking about being lit. But so with both of these, I would talk about everyone who's come to Young Life tonight, who's come to Wyldlife tonight, whatever it is, come to Young Lives. You've heard the same thing. So there's a difference that Jesus is talking about. Like, it's not that you hear it with your ears, it's what it does in your life. And that would be similar to a tiny seed that is never watered, that is never planted, that never blooms into what it was meant to be. Or a candle that it's sitting there and it actually isn't lit, and so it doesn't do the thing that was actually designed to do. It's when that seed is planted and watered that it grows up, and it's when that candle is lit that it lights up an entire room.Ese are the things that we are meant for. And as I thought a little bit about kind of how to connect that to what it is that kids feel and think about, because of the idea of a seed growing into a tree that then produces fruit, one thing that I thought about was a play a bit on the fruit of the Spirit. And so I could see a link basically working with kind of the antonyms of what you find in the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5:22 and 23. And so I thought of these antonyms, say, hey, when the seed is not growing, when all you do is hear it and it goes in one ear and out the other, when a candle isn't lit but it's just sitting there dull and not functioning like it's meant to be, you have these. But God wants to do something greater. And it's, some of you are going to walk out tonight and this is going to work in your life, or you want it to grow, or you want it to be stronger. And then I would play on these words that say, where there was hate, there's now love. Where there's misery, there's now joy. Where there's anxiety, there's more peace. Where there was restlessness, there's more patience. Where there's cold-heartedness, kindness starts to come. Where there's badness, things start experiencing goodness. Where there is just a vibe of like disloyalty among people and friends and all that, there's faithfulness. Where there's harshness about the way people treat each other and the things that's going on, there's gentleness. And where there's weakness, there's self-control. And that's when it comes from someone just hearing something, going in one ear and out the other, to God, to really saying, God, I actually want this to soak into my life. I want those things in my life. And I want to be about what you're about. And so I might do that. I mean, just a little bit of a alternate there. But you could also do the Jesus Calms the Storm story, which I think is honestly probably one of the best ones that we do. And it grabs on so great. But especially if you do the Jesus Calms the Storm one, please look at my other Talk Tuesday, because I have kind of major warning about the way that people misinterpret that, especially sadly in kind of the Young Life world, about it being about God being a storm calmer rather than us being like the people in the boat saying, who is this man that even the wind and the waves obey him? That is definitely the main point of that story, and we get that backwards sometimes. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope that this was helpful and that you have some great talks. I'm looking forward to my team having their Mark IV talk. So go, Krista Rickard. You're awesome. I know you'll crush it. So have a great weekend. I'm heading up to Lost Canyon to do work crew, being a work crew boss, I guess. So I'll be busy this weekend. Hope you have a great weekend too. All right. Bye.